Hello, good evening. This is Anastasia coming to you on my personal page via my visibility challenge. So I'm in this to get out in front, push through my resistance of being seen, and it's super important to me, so I'm dedicated to doing this every day. And I'm basically telling my story, and the last 2 nights have been kind of interesting, talking about how I became a healer in the first place and got into, talking about Reiki and stuff last night. So a bunch of you left comments, and thank you for that. A friend of mine, Joe Diamond, and if she comes on tonight, make sure you check her out. She's a vegan health coach, and so she helps people who want to become vegan find creative ideas to do that. So that's really cool. And she was watching and was saying that Reiki bake, the Reiki, I didn't really realize you could do that with food. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the structures of that and how that works. So when you become attuned to do Reiki, there are certain symbols that you learn depending on the level of Reiki that you're taking. So there's 1, 2, ART and Master. Then there's the Karuna Reiki, which is a whole separate 3 steps of, symbols and things like that. And each one has a meaning, and each one invokes a certain thing. So maybe it's, turning the power on, or emotional healing. There's so many different things. And also distance healing is one of them. And it's a really, really powerful tool that we can use if you're a Reiki practitioner. So ideally what you would do if you were going to do, so in my space for years, when I became this, so I would go into my treatment room and I would draw these specific symbols on the walls and the ceiling and the floor, because then you're invoking into that space. And I did that because it was kind of just a thing that I did when I opened up my space. It's like, I have all these clients come in today, so they'll all receive this and it'll be, healing and really cool. And then ultimately, when you're working on a person, you're focused on them and putting the symbols or whatever, doing it with them. So ideally, if you wanted to take anything, I don't have a piece of food down here, but I have, say this crystal. And say I even used it on somebody and I wanted to clean it. I could do the symbols of the Reiki and I can just literally hold it like this. So if you had like an apple or an orange or something that you could hold, you could literally do it like this. Okay, you could also do it where you charge actually that's kind of complicated. But what I'm saying here is this. If you were to want to cook a meal, and I've done this many times when I've had like family coming over for holidays and stuff like that, there's a bigger meal, it's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more time management. I was like, I want to be on my game. I want to be able to get this, appropriated the way that'll make me feel good and productive and stuff like that. So, I would draw the symbols within the kitchen and even in the dining room and anywhere I'd really want to. Actually, I constantly draw them in my house anyway. But then, you can either say you're making something and you get it all into like a crock pot or a casserole where everything's going eventually. And then ultimately you would take the symbols and then you would just sort of Reiki. You don't put your hands in it, obviously, but you're touching it maybe just on top. And you stay there for a few moments and then it's basically Reikiing the food. Now, what I really love about that, like when I do like a holiday meal, is because I really am doing it because I'm excited my family's coming and I want them to be blessed by the service of me making the food and all that kind of stuff. Additionally, though, people that say if you eat meat and things like that, and sometimes there's a concern if it was treated fairly as it was, butchered and things like that, you can actually Reiki the meat, even before you start cooking it. And ideally it cleanses it from any, weird or lower vibrational energies that may be around it. So those are a couple things that people can use it for if they do Reiki. But frankly, even if you there's lots of cool things. You can invoke the angels. You can, there's a lot of things that you can do to create more spirituality when you're cooking and baking and all that kind of stuff. But one of my favorite things would be is to make these chocolate chip cookies, and I would put them in this big bowl, right, the dough, and I would Reiki the dough, and I would always bring them to parties and stuff. And sometimes, they weren't really that great. Like, how sometimes stuff turns out good, and other times like, not so much. Well, like this one time I'll never forget, I took them to this party and people were like, I just feel so good after I ate these. I'm like, oh, that's really cool, because I don't say that I do that to people, and But after that one time, I think I did tell somebody that they were Reiki'd. And then the other fun thing is, like, in my office, I used to have peppermint patties all the time for somebody to take when they were leaving, as a nice little treat. And I would Reiki those too. And so, it was just a little fun thing that I could add. And so, so that's that. The other thing that I will say, and maybe I'll start with this first rather than the magic stories. So, when I was called in to start to doing energy work and healing work, it really meant that, I had a huge amount of resistance in it. Like, when you're a massage therapist, you have to go and take 24 hours of credits every 2 years. Like, you have to. And so I would go and I had so many different modalities that I did. But I would have to go there. And the fact is that sometimes I would have like emotional releases and things like that. And I wasn't comfortable showing my emotions to anyone. And so I remember this one time, one of the most profound things was when I took my Thai massage class. And it's a really great modality, but I'm laying on this Thai mat face down, and there's this guy, and he's sort of rolling the back of my leg with his foot. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that really, really hurts, but like in a weird way, not because there was no way he was putting that much pressure on it. And I was like, can you lighten up a little bit? And he didn't hear me. And then he just kept doing it. And all of a sudden I just started like sobbing into this mat, and I was very, very embarrassed. And then he was like oblivious, right, that I was emoting. And he's like, oh my God, are you crying? Like in front of everybody. So it was just, I'm telling you this story because there was a lot of real uncomfortable times that I had to go through in order to heal myself from, feeling, not wanting to feel vulnerable, not trusting people with my emotions, my stuff. My stuff was something that I had put into such a position inside of myself to keep me safe. And when I started going on this journey of having to get worked on, because it's basically how it goes, it was something that made me really understand that when people come in on my table, that whether they say it or not, whether they're happy-go-lucky or not, that I need to make sure that I create that space, and then I never, love you too, Care, thanks. And then I never take it for granted that there's something that I might be facilitating there. And I always kept a watchful eye for that. So I say that because, then I became very excited about new modalities and the energy that could be coming in, and how the strength of it would be, and the potential of it, what it could be. And so again, many of my sessions were just like, hey, we're just going to do this thing. But other times it was very, very specified to releasing something. And when those things happened, it was very, very special. And there was many, many, many of those. But there were a handful of sessions over the years where I knew that Spirit took me somewhere, or I was working on someone, and there was a real reason for it. And it was told to me later, which was really cool. So I'm going to tell you 3 of these, and I'll keep them brief. So there was a client of mine that I had, and she was a nurse practitioner, so she had tons of medical background, all this kind of stuff. And she was also chronically ill, like with, it was always one thing or another. And I remember this one day she she was a regular client of mine, and she was really, really upset. And they said that they think she had a brain tumor, right? Now, because she was very analytical, and I think she really liked coming to me because I could really talk her language, and she felt confident that I could work and do certain things. And she tells me this, and I said, this is one of those times where I was like, I really feel like I should do Reiki on her. And so I trusted that, and I trusted her enough. I knew her enough. I didn't think she would be like, wow. She was in a really, really interesting, scary position. Anyway, so I told her that that's what I'd like to do amongst some other things. And she said that would be great because I have to go in and, we have this preliminary thing to do. And I was like, okay. So she knew the area where it was. And I literally just held her head, and it was just a very, very strong session, if you know what I mean. And I thought, in my mind, if I could do this healing, but again, I didn't want to make it about me, but it was like, could I actually do this, and could people survive different things, right? And what I learned was that sometimes you're just there sort of helping them through the time until the time is over. And so anyway, with this particular woman, we did the Reiki, and hello. And she ended up going to get the procedure done, and they went in to get it, and it was a big pocket of water. And she came back to me, and I said, "Are you okay?" I remember that day because I was like, "How are you?" I was texting her friend, and I was like, "Please, like, let me know." And I was sending distance Reiki, and it was water. And she came in later, and she just kind of looked at me, and I was like, I don't know, like, it wasn't like it was a scientific experiment or anything, but we both knew in that moment. So that was a really, really powerful one. The other time, there was a friend of mine who had been diagnosed with cancer. She had a lump in her breast. She didn't want to take care of it. She ended up having a double mastectomy, and it was right around the time I had my son. And she, then they were like, okay, you're good to go, or to whatever extent. And she kept going back for her appointments and stuff, and she started having this really bad back pain. And I told her, I said, all I know is that cancer can spread to bone, and your doctor's telling you it's nothing. I said, you might want to reconsider that. Well, it turned out that she had stage 4 bone cancer, and it was all through her body and everything else. And I remember thinking, like, you have this stuff. It's like, would it help? Would you want to do this? And she wasn't really open to it. But anyway, things really, took a downward progression pretty fast. And I'll never forget, it was Black Friday. And they were like, she's in Philly hospital. She's not going to make it. So anybody that wants to has to come up here and stuff like that. So me and a mutual friend, we drove up there that night, and we went into the room. And I remember there was all this family around. And I was sitting there, and I'm thinking, I knew I was there because I wanted to be there, but I felt like there was a different reason. And so anyway, after everybody leaves, and so then me and this other friend, we go over to the bed, and this girl, she was very drugged up, but she looks over and she sees me, and she's like, "Oh, finally, you're here." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm here." And I mean, my hands were red hot, and it was like, if I didn't touch this woman, there was no stopping me. I was going to do this. And of course, you don't ever push your will. So I was like, "Hey, is it okay if I," she was like, "Yes." And so I touched her, and it was just such a palpable, like, flow of whoom, 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 right? And I was like, whoa. And then after a while, she just looks over at me, because I'm like, "Yes." And to me, my name, more is better, and let's just do this all night. She just looks over at me, and she goes, "Okay, that's just about enough." And I was like, okay. But the story goes is that she actually didn't die. She lived a whole nother year and a half. And so I was like, you know what I mean? And like, I knew that there was some kind of part I played, and I knew that the energy fulfilled, like, her life force for some reason. And I do believe it's because she still had work to do, and she didn't have enough energy left to get it done. And so that's my own perspective of that. And so then the last one I'll tell you about is, so my mom, like a couple years ago now, she was diagnosed with this brain aneurysm, which of course she didn't tell me about. She was going to go have a procedure. She's got this really bad habit where she thinks that she's saving you from the pain if you don't know what's going on. And so anyway, she's like, "Well, there's this aneurysm and this and that." And she's like, "They don't think I'm going to live through the surgery." I mean, it was a really serious situation. And so she ended up coming into my office because she felt she needed to talk to me about a few things and, getting ready for the end and that kind of stuff. And so we sat there, and I said, "Mom, you do at this moment, like, I don't know what's happening here. And obviously I want you to live. And, you've never really been that open to my work, but why don't we give it a shot? Why don't we get the body ready to say, this is what's going to happen?" Okay. Because sometimes we have that resistance. And so when, like, a surgery wants to happen, there's that resistance there. And if the doctors are meeting that resistance, it's much, much harder for the body to shift and change and get that medical treatment that it needs. Right. So she agreed, and I ended up, working on it. Now, I knew it was on the left side of her head, but when I did touch it, it was like I could see it. And it was like, I just talked to it, and I was like, "You know what? This is what they're going to do. This is what's going to happen, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah." And that was it. It was just my own little experiment there. And it was a highly emotional time for me. And so anyway, it was shortly after that she had the surgery. And I'll never forget this too, because she survived. We're in the waiting room. The doctor comes out and she's very, you know, like all business and stuff. And you're like, that's good because we want you, you know, right on time with this, you know, whatever. But then, and she was like, it went a lot better than I expected, you know, da-da-da-da-da. Okay. So then we go in to see my mom later, and the doctor walks in again, and then the doctor says to my mom, she's like, I really can't believe you made it. And I'm like, okay, you know, she's not really recovered yet. I mean, that's kind of intense. But I was standing there and I thought, you know, I had this awareness of the role I was playing and the healer that I am. And, you know, when you're called in to do certain things, it doesn't always mean you're going to get somebody totally healed, you know, to the other side of things. Because I certainly tried sometimes. Like I had a couple of different clients who were suffering from things. And, you know, I did believe, like I'm a very optimistic person. And I did believe that, you know, if you line up with your path, but sometimes the path is the end. Okay, so this was part of being this healer, right? So anyway, those were really intense and magical times that, you know, I don't really have opportunities to talk about them, but they do exist. So anyway, so backtrack back to 2004. I'd opened my practice, and, you know, I started meeting other healers, and they were introducing me to different things. And so the last thing I'm going to talk about today is Louise Hay, and she's now been deceased for a while, but she was one of the forerunners of, you know, how do I put this? So like not just the alternative medicine, but the mysticism, and then understanding that the body's energy. And she was a woman who had been, I believe she was sexually abused and had cancer and overcame it, and so all this stuff. And so anyway, I had certainly a lot of wounds, and somebody had recommended this book to me, which is You Can Heal Your Life. Because I remember, like, I would be driving to work, and here I am, people were like, oh, you're this massage therapist, you're so calm and stuff. And I was like, not really. I was driving to work today, and I was like, you know, things would make me so angry because I was just a rage monster. I had so much wounds inside of me. I would just rage sometimes. But in this book is where I've learned the first time about affirmations. And one of them was, you know, I love and appreciate myself. And I remember saying that over and over and over and over and over and over, because I was like, I'm not going to rage. I'm just going to say that. And I was like, I can do that. And I remember listening to subliminal messages and all that kind of stuff. And I did it religiously. You know, it was one of the first levels I was able to start healing myself internally. Because like I said, it's like when I look back now, I realized there was a total purpose for me entering into that work, because it actually healed me, you know, and it, I mean, I have a serious respect and value for the work because of it. It couldn't have really been any other way, right, for me. So anyway, inside of this book, there's this really interesting chart. It's pages and pages of this chart, and it has different things, which now, by the way, you can get it as an app on your phone. So anybody that's worked with me knows I used to whip this book out all the time. Then I'll be like, let me show you this. So they're talking about having a situation. I'll be like, well, here's this. So the chart basically says that there's an idea or thought process that's creating a situation for you in your body, which is a dis-ease, which is basically an out of alignment with ease. Okay, that's what dis-ease is. And so let's just look at one. If you guys want me to look something up, you got to ask me now. But I was looking at tonsillitis. So there's a probable cause, and I would read these to people and say, well, how does that sound to you? Because, you know, sometimes it's like, I don't really think that's me at all. There still has some weight to it. But again, over time, you could think maybe that was the case. But tonsillitis, so anything itis is an inflammation, which does mean like an anger, okay? But it says fear and repressed emotions repressed emotions and stifled creativity. And so the interesting thing I think about that is because when you learn about the chakras and the throat chakra, it is the expression of our voice, the expression of our creativity. Okay, Carrie. And when we decide that we're not important enough to have, like, if I have my emotions, like one of my in my group, like a while ago now, I had this thing. It's like, it's safe for me to feel and say my emotions. There's times where I really love somebody so much and I want to tell them, but I'm like, no, they'll take it the wrong way, or that's weird. And I'm like, you know what? No, I want to feel this. I want to be able to say this, and also have it be received, in a way. And so if I can't do that, then there's this energy that gets stuck there. And then there's times where it becomes certain particular things. Okay. So Carrie's asking for appendicitis. That's a really interesting story, right, Carrie? She goes on vacation to Mexico, and then they were like, oh, no. Right, Carrie? Is that right? If I remember correctly? Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so it just says fear. Fear of life, blocking the flow of good. So again, that's really, it's kind of a blunt thing. It's kind of a blunt thing, but it's like this. Getting into coaching and being an empowerment person, it just means that there's so many different things that are fear-based in our collective, in our just in our society, things that we've subscribed to that we're evolving out of as a race. Okay, and so the appendix is down at the bottom. So really we're talking about probably a combination of the root chakra, which is family, tribe, things that have gone on, even not in your lifetime, because when you are part of a family, like it's called family constellation, and you will be playing out these different roles. So if your ancestors or the people in your family that have gone had issues that they weren't able to conquer or be successful with, it's almost like passing the baton and you're taking it. And then it's like, I know for a fact, like, sometimes things haven't been so easy for me, but I know that I'm clearing out a lot of the things that happen. We're talking alcoholism, suicides, repression, depression, people living in the depression, what kind of scarcity that had, what kind of suicide rate there was. And when you think about it, it's like those are imprints, but they're made for us to grow out of and move forward from. So thanks, Care. Yeah. So, but then with the appendix, the sacral chakra is the one above. It's our relationships, but also how we nurture ourselves. And it is the seat of our creativity. So it says blocking the flow of good. It basically, the sacral chakra is the element of water, and it's that flow. And when we flow with life and we're creating and we're abundant and we have certain things that come easy, and then a lot of times if something happens, a block there would be like there's no more flow, or there's less flow than there was. And I mean, how many women, they have countless issues with the reproductive system. I mean, I don't know really the statistics, but it seems to me like I hear a lot more about the women than men, even though I know men have their prostate issues and things like that. But that's what we'd be talking about in that area. So even with that, it's like, well, what do I do? I mean, obviously, learning about some of these modalities, like I said, the chakras and all that kind of stuff, doing self-reflection, working with different programs. Of course, I have plenty of awesome programs for you guys if you are interested in participating in them. But let's just pick one more. You know what we're going to pick? Anus, because I'm on the A's. And think about it though. So there's people who are like, I have like this problem in the anus, and it's like, what in the world is that? Like hemorrhoids. Think about this. It is the time of letting go. When we have an experience, so like if I eat a big sandwich, right, and my body's going to take the nutrients from it, and the waste is going to go through, and then basically the body excretes it out. When we have an experience, we need to take that into our energy field and then assimilate it and then express the waste as well. And when we're having a hard time with that, it usually shows up in the physical body first. And then it's like my releasing point, like there's a block there. It's like a lot of people have a lot of hard time letting go of things, things that happened. And again, I do think of older generations with this, but it's only because of the things that they were healing from the past. I mean, there have been some very severe things, world wars, genocide, intense things these people live through. So this isn't a judgment statement. It's just my own observation. And, it's like they're taking that and they're holding that baton and they need to like bring it to the next, but they also lived in a time where a lot of these skill sets didn't really exist. I mean, even with some of the beginning psychiatrists, I mean, that was only in the 1800s. So it's like, how long was their mental illness and how was it dealt with? It was a shame point, right? So I say all that because it's like, when I want to let something go, how easy is it for me? And if you could check your bowels, if you have any kind of constipation issue, then you can guarantee it's a letting go issue. And so you can just do affirmations. So the coolest thing about this is, it's like there's a probable cause, and then there's a new thought pattern, which is ultimately an affirmation that you would say. So it's like, I easily and comfortably release that which I no longer need in life. And I know that there's a bunch of people that have learned about that. It's like, in fact, Louise Hay, I think, was one of the beginning people. It's like, if you haven't worn something in a year, you're going to get rid of it. It's like taking up that energetic space in your closet, etc. And so I found this to be incredibly helpful. And also because it's like, I'm not this person that knows everything, but I have tools that I refer to constantly so that I can get a better leg up on what's happening in my life, right? So like right now, like I have a spine issue ever since I fell when I was pregnant with Joey, and the lower vertebrae got broken and nobody knew it. I ended up with a C-section, then my vertebrae went forward, and I walked around like that for the longest time. And it's funny because I thought I had it in check, but like last year it got really, really bad, and it was like, oh my God. But ultimately it's right in the back of my sacral chakra, the bones of the root chakra. So there was really something that I've been working on clearing in my family, in my roots, who I am, deciding to move forward. Because one of the things I do know about myself is like, I will not just unconsciously recreate what was my experience. And so I have to do, in my mind, anything and everything so that isn't the case. And here's the thing is because I want that, it's always good. It's always in line. And obviously I'm not performing that situation, but so if anybody else has an idea, but you can, like I said, you can get the app. It's You Can Heal Your Life app. And this is the book. It's actually a series. It comes with a journal. It's a really nice, set. It's a really nice book, which actually I haven't read in the longest time because I read it several times. And and I took it and I practiced it, right? So anything you learn, you got to take it and you got to practice it. And the other thing I'll just add, and I'll end with this, is it is your body. So when there's something wrong with your body and you're like, I don't understand what's going on, you might want to lay down, do a short meditation and say, body, maybe you can tell me what's going on here. Like, what is it really? Do you think you can tell me? And that could be for just about anything, even a symptom that you wouldn't consider to be like a disease necessarily, but it's something that it's not really feeling in a complete alignment with who you are. So that was a big, long ball of wax or whatever. And I hope you enjoyed the information, and I will be coming on each day with some extra fun stuff. Like I said last night, I've got astrology, color, archetypes, all kinds of stuff that I'll bring in. And again, if I'm definitely going to get that. Yeah, good. Anyway, so if you have any questions, you want me to talk about anything specifically, like I said, I'm happy to do that. Essential oils, how they work, crystals, Yeah, definitely, Carrie. We'll have to go out. I'll get my mask ready. I joke, but that's because I'm in need of some fun, actually. So yes, Carrie, let's go. I love you too. Thanks everybody for watching tonight. Like I said, any questions, send them my way. We can make this fun and cool, and I hope you're enjoying my series. All right. Have a good night. Bye.